Is Facebook advertising still a viable place to find clients, or are the glory days far behind us? Well, that's what I want to share with you in this video. Hey guys, what's going on? Yuri, Elkaim, your CEO and founder of Healthpreneur. We help health professionals and coaches build scalable coaching businesses that transform more lives. And today, I'm going to talk with you about Facebook advertising. Is it all it's cracked up to be? Is it still valid this year? Or is 5, 6, 7 years ago, good old days? Well, first and foremost, we have to think about why advertise in the first place. And when I talk about Facebook, just understand that we're talking about Meta, which is the new name, and that incorporates both Facebook and Instagram. So, it doesn't matter if you don't think your people are on Facebook. There are 3 billion users on Facebook and Instagram. They're there. So there's 3 things I want to share with you with respect to why I'm a big proponent of advertising in general. When you have an online business, the biggest danger you face is obscurity, which means if no one knows who you are, it doesn't matter how good you are, okay? And that's unfortunate for the vast majority of businesses and health experts and coaches, is that most people don't even know they exist simply because they can't see them. It's very different in a physical setting with a brick and mortar where people walk down the street and they see your clinic, your gym, but online that doesn't happen. The field of dreams, as Kevin Costner, famously talked about or had that movie, doesn't exist online, right? You have to proactively put yourself in front of your perfect audience. The second thing to understand is that if you actually want to build a viable business, when I say viable, I mean a business that actually makes money, makes profit, and is here for the long run. In my experience, successful entrepreneurs understand that time is expensive and money is cheap. And I share that because a lot of health experts believe that they can hope their way to a better business. And when I say health experts, replace that with coaches, entrepreneurs, insert your thing. They think that they can free their way to where they want to go. And that's just not going to happen in any amount of time. Maybe down the road. Like in my first business that I started in 2005 online, it took me 7 years to make my first $1 million because most of what I was doing was organic. It was free. But the thing is that it wasn't free. It took every moment of every day, and it took me 7 years. When I started Healthpreneur 7 years ago, it took us 7 weeks to make our first $1 million. So this is why advertising, it buys you speed. It gives you leverage. It's really, really important. If you want to move quickly, it's important to understand how to advertise. It's the fastest thing it levels the playing field. You don't need a following. You don't need anyone to know you. You don't need to be famous. Most of our clients have no online following, no social media accounts. They come in, we help them build out their perfect client pipeline, which is the main acquisition channel we use with paid traffic. And within a couple of weeks or a couple of months, they're already building 6-figure businesses, right? And that's because of the power of leverage. Third thing I want to talk about specifically with Facebook ads, again, Meta ads, is that it's actually easier than YouTube. So if you're watching this and you're considering, well, maybe I'll do YouTube ads, I want to discourage you from doing so. And the reason for this is simple. Video is far more complex than text plus image. And I recommend, and all of our clients start with text and image. And then they ask me hey, what about video ads? I'm like, hey, video ads are great, but they can also be terrible. And the problem is that you don't know what to fix. YouTube advertising is a great platform if your video creative is exceptional. And I'm not talking about necessarily the quality of the camera. I'm talking about the understanding of how to storyboard a video creative in a few minutes that's going to really move people to the next step and doing so in a profitable way. It's not as easy as you think it is. And that's why I'm a big, big believer in starting off with Facebook. So those are 3 things I just wanted to kind of preface this by saying. Obscurity, successful people understand that money is cheap, time is expensive. And in general, Facebook advertising is easier than YouTube because you can use text and image as opposed to just relying on video. So with that said, let's talk about, is Facebook advertising still relevant today? My answer to that is hell yes. And I'll share a couple of reasons with you why. So number 1, there's 3 billion users on the platform, right? So when I'm talking about Facebook, just / Instagram, it's one and the same, okay? When you have 3 billion users on a platform, you better believe that it's still a viable platform. And yes, advertising and the nuances have changed because there's removing of interest. There's obviously all sorts of things that have happened since iOS 14.5. I'm going to get into some of that in a moment, but I want you to understand that none of that is a reason for you not to advertise. First and foremost, let's understand the difference with social media advertising compared to Google search as an example. So if you're running Google AdWords, for the most part, you have a search-based intent. So people, you can, create campaigns around specific keyword phrases that people would type into Google. How to lose weight. Now, if someone types that in and they see your ad, there's more intent behind that. So you'd think that it'd have a higher conversion rate, and in many cases it does. Facebook and social media is an interruption-based platform, which means you're going about your day, you're scrolling through your feed, you're enjoying some content, and boom, sponsored post. Every fourth post is a sponsored post, which essentially means an ad. So it's an interruption. You're not searching for that. And these platforms are putting what they feel is relevant content in the form of advertising in front of you or whoever else is seeing it. Understand that the ads you see are probably very different than the ads someone else sees based on how they interact with the platform, what their interests are, what the stuff they're liking is. And that's why it's really, really helpful to understand the algorithm, which is a beautiful thing, to be very honest. I'll get to that in 1 second. But when you think about Facebook or Instagram as an interruption-based advertising platform, some people might say that's not a good thing. But here's my argument to that. If you're going about your day and you're not thinking about like anything other than, hey, I'm going to pick up my coffee at Starbucks. By the way, I'm enjoying a natural cold brew this morning with a light splash of sweet cream. Pretty good. So if I'm at Starbucks and I'm scrolling through my phone, which I don't typically do, but let's say I was on Instagram scrolling through and boom, an ad pops up and stops my attention and holds me there for a moment. And then I click on that ad to go to the next page, to opt in, to watch something, to download something. I would argue that that's a more effective strategy. The prospect is even more motivated than possibly someone who's searching for a similar topic. Think about it. It's like when people knock at your door. They go, throughout the neighborhood, door to door, cold calling, cold knocking, all that kind of stuff. You're not thinking of pesticide control, right? Or pest control. But all of a sudden, someone comes to your door and says, hey, I noticed this thing over here. Would you like us to take care of that? It wasn't even in your mind, but in the back of your mind, all of a sudden, now they presented a problem, or maybe it was something you thought about. You're looking at your grass and you had a grub problem. Maybe there was a skunk that tore up a hole. And all of a sudden, you're not actively searching for a solution, but someone knocks on your door and says, hey, I can solve this for you. That's cold calling and cold knocking, you can get some of the best customers from that, because anyone who is willing to take a stranger for a few moments and have a conversation with them, you better believe they're interested. And this is why I think Facebook advertising is so powerful, because it's an interruption-based platform. And if your prospects take a moment to actually listen or watch or read your ad, it says a tremendous amount about their intention and desire to want to solve the problem, which I think is a very positive thing. Now, the Facebook algorithm, really quickly, don't worry about the algorithm. Just worry about putting stuff out there that people resonate with, because the algorithm follows the audience. So what happens is when someone clicks on an ad and they opt into your thing, that data is going to be sent back to Facebook, and Facebook is like, oh, those conversions. So if your campaign is built around conversions, Facebook will give you more of those types of people. And the beautiful thing today, compared to several years ago with Facebook advertising, and I've been advertising on Facebook since 2013, okay? Back in the day, you could be very, very granular with your targeting, which was what we thought amazing. But the problem with that is it actually complicated campaign management. You had so much granularity that it was actually overly complicated to manage. And you end up spending a lot of time in the ads manager. Nowadays, what you may have found is all of the interests, not all, but a lot of very specific interests are disappearing. It's like Thanos snapped his fingers and a bunch of the interests are gone. And initially, a lot of amateurs freaked out. They're like, oh my God, I can't target Dr. Oz. I can't target Weight Watchers. I can't target very specific interests on Facebook. And I'm like, who cares? Because here's the beautiful thing, is that the disappearance of interest groups on Facebook is the best thing that could have happened to your business. And I'm going to share with you 3 reasons why right now in this video. Since the beginning of advertising on Facebook, at least in terms of how I've been teaching it. And you can go back to my earlier videos if you want to and find this somewhere. I have been saying for the past 7 years, the most important thing when it comes to advertising is the message. No and ifs or buts. That's it. And what's nice now is that you're forced to have a great message. Because here's what's going to happen is as Facebook is becoming broader and broader and broader with its targeting, and removing a lot of these very granular interests. Well, like for us, initially it was like, we could target very specifically chiropractor who likes this journal of chiropractic. We could go very granular with some of that targeting. Now we can't. We're lucky if we can even get job title chiropractor, right? So the initial thinking is like, oh my God, I can't find my people on Facebook. You can't if you don't know what you're doing and you're not watching videos like this or working with us, for instance. Because what amateurs do is they freak out because they don't understand the first principles under which advertising works on Facebook in the first place. When I say your messaging is everything, here's the deal. The first thing I want to share around this is, in order for Facebook to find more of your ideal people, they have to know what a conversion event is. So if your campaign is set up for conversions, opt-in, call booked, whatever it is, there's a sequence of person sees ad, clicks ad, goes to landing page, opts in, that feedback goes back to Facebook. Facebook's like, cool, more of those people, awesome. And as a starting point, Facebook will generally show your ads to people who are more likely to convert based on previous data points, right? Now, here's the thing. If you want people to convert to your stuff, your messaging and offer have to be solid. But if your messaging is vague, like most people's is, and your offer sucks, like most people's is, then it doesn't matter. It's not about the interest groups going away. It's the very fact that you don't know how to communicate to your audience that's the big problem. And then people say Facebook advertising doesn't work. No, it works just fine. It's just your messaging sucks and you don't know how to put an offer in front of people that they actually want. Where's the opportunity here for you? The opportunity here for you is to learn how to do this stuff, is to skill up and understand how to communicate to other humans in a way that doesn't come across as a slimy douchebag, to put stuff in front of people that stops them in the scroll, grabs their attention, and takes them through a journey where they're like, this sounds interesting. This is the number one thing we help our clients with. It's not about ads management. Like, that's 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's super easy. And it's easier now than it used to be. And I'll talk about that more in a second. So the first thing I want you to understand, that targeting has changed, okay? So just as a recap, now targeting has become more and more broad, less and less specific. And instead of freaking out about it, understand that the beautiful part about being broad is it makes the management of your ads so much easier. Right now, so we help health professionals build coaching businesses. And right now, our top ads are all being served to a broad audience in Canada, UK, Ireland, United States. No other targeting other than women, men, 30 to 55. That's what I consider broad. Okay? There's no, and also must be a health professional, like none of that stuff. It is super broad. And because data is being fed back to Facebook and Facebook is like, oh, cool, we'll find more of those people because we know what they look like now. We have the luxury of not having to freak out about all these little interests that are disappearing because our highest converting campaign is to the highest, most broad audience already. Does that make sense? And the reason it's working is because the right messaging is being put in front of people. Those people who resonate with it are converting, and Facebook is like, we'll find more of those people. But if your messaging sucks and it doesn't get clicks and it doesn't get conversions, then guess what? It's not the interest disappearing. It's the fact that your ads suck in the first place. Does that make sense? So targeting is the first thing we have to be aware of. Disappearance of interest, going more broad. That leads us to the second opportunity and also biggest issue, which is terrible messaging and vague offers. Okay? So again, the more conversions you get, the more the algorithm will be trained. And that's why the algorithm today is way more advanced than it was 5 or 6 years ago. And that's why, probably some privacy reasons, Facebook doesn't want you to know too much about the people on the platform, which is part of why they're removing the interest groups. But I'm telling you, like, the algorithm is so much more advanced now. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is you don't have to tell Facebook all the granular details. Facebook or Meta knows way more than you think it does. Just put good messaging, let it do its thing, it'll find your people. The third thing I want to talk about is kind of the campaign management side of things, because there's no one way of running ads, okay? But what we have found to be very useful, and just for context, we spend 6 figures a month on a monthly basis. We're profitable at least 2 to 1 on 30-day cash collected. So if we spend $200,000 at minimum, we're making $400,000 collected in the first 30 days. And we've been doing this now for the past 7 years. We've not had a single week where we've not been positive ROI. Okay? Obviously it's varied, but generally on average, we've been positive ROI every single week for the past 7 years. So I'm sharing with you is coming from actual experience. I'm not some type of like armchair doctor who just saw some video and is now regurgitating garbage. So when I started Healthpreneur, I ran all the ads myself. I was in the ads manager, and I'm telling you this because it was granular. we had like dozens upon dozens upon dozens of ad sets for each specific interest. It was visually overwhelming, and as a result, it took a lot of my time. So when I got the company to a few, I think it was about $1.5 million, $2 million, I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to delegate this to an agency. Now, you've seen my other videos on my thoughts on this stuff, so I'll link to that in maybe the description. But I had a good friend who runs a great agency, a really great guy, works with a lot of top coaches and consultants around the world. And I worked with him. And then we were with another agency. We worked with 4 agencies over the space of 4 years. We spent $500,000 in retainers over those 4 years. So north of about $15,000 to $20,000 a month plus ad spend, right? Percentage of ad spend. It's a very expensive predicament. And I'm sharing this with you because what I thought was going to alleviate stuff off my plate happened to a certain degree, but the results were less than impressive. So 2 years ago, after being very frustrated with working with an agency we were with, taking 4 days to deploy an ad instead of a couple of hours, I just started getting I'm like, you know what, screw this. We teach our clients how to do this stuff every single day. I'm like, let's just bring it back in-house and run it ourselves. So we did. We took it all back in-house. I took over the ad accounts. I started training one of our team members to run everything. And then in the space of 45 days, 30 to 45 days, we reduced the cost per acquisition by 60%, 60%. And that allowed us to triple our ad spend. How did we do that? Well, we did that because we used a process called the reverse scaling method. And how a lot of people, and this is actually something I figured out at that time, because I was like, why is it so hard for so many people to scale their ads? And part of the reason is because if you start at a lower budget and then scale it over time, there's diminishing returns, the ad doesn't perform as well and so forth. And I just started testing some new theories. I said, well, what if we started at scale? Like, what if instead of starting at $100 a day, we started an ad set at $1,000 a day or $2,000 a day right out of the gate? You might say, well, Yuri, you would have lost your shirt. What if all the ads didn't work and you would lose $2,000? No, here's the thing is that when you understand how to advertise properly, there's no more risk if you're spending a lot of money out of the gate, because the thing is you have checkpoints. We call it a 6-step pruning process. So there's actually 6 milestones or checkpoints that we look at in our dashboard. And if an ad doesn't perform well in the first 24 hours, it's not going to perform well a couple of days later. I've not seen that to be true. And I've heard experts talk about give it some time, let it season. No, winners are winners, losers are losers. Like if the ad sucks out of the gate, there are specific, let's call it ad spends at which we turn stuff off, right? So if your cost per click is too high after a certain amount of spend, you turn it off. So you're not bleeding money on the back end. So the reverse scaling method, the idea here is you start at a much higher budget. And when you know how to turn things off, what metrics to look for, then you have no more risk if you're spending $100 a day or $2,000 a day. The only difference is if the ad works or variations of the ad works, then you're already at scale. And this is what allowed us to go so quickly because we started our ads at $2,000 a day. So if 1 or 2 variations worked well, we're 20 times ahead compared to if we spent $100 a day. And that allowed us to scale acquisition pretty dramatically. And this is the exact method we teach our clients. We don't necessarily advise $2,000 a day as a starting point, but in some cases it's $100 a day instead of just 15 or 20 or 25. So I share this with you because I'm not going to get into the nuances of this because there's obviously some proprietary methodology around this. And this is obviously what our clients pay us for some of these nuances and the details and all that kind of stuff. Again, if you want our help, there's a link below. You can take the next step there. But I want you to understand that there has never been a better time to advertise on Facebook. If you want to find clients for your coaching business, there are 3 billion people on Facebook and Instagram. And I would be willing to bet my life that your people, I don't care how unique you think your audience is, they're on Facebook and Instagram. I don't care. Like, they're there, okay? The bigger thing is if you don't know what you're doing, that's the biggest danger all the time. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about Facebook or if we're talking about anything else. When things change, when you don't understand the fundamental principles, you will always be freaking out and you will always be worried because you're going to be hearing what other people talk about and you're going to have no context because you have no expertise, and therefore we freak out, right? It's the same thing that happened during COVID. It's the same thing that happens when the economy is going down. Like most people freak out, but successful people are like, this is a great time to buy stuff. And it's the same thing that's happening right now. A lot of people are freaking out on Facebook, which means they're going to leave because they're amateurs. Meanwhile, people like myself and all of our clients, we're going to continue gobbling up market share and helping more people because we actually know what the hell to do. Okay? So yeah, listen, here's what I want you to do next. If you found this useful, again, it's kind of a little bit more of a theoretical video, but if you want to go into the granular details around messaging, because I talked about the importance of messaging and the writing of your ads is everything. If you want to know how we approach the writing of ad copy and you'd like to use what we call our 3 3M method, then check out this video right here and I'll walk you through exactly what that is. I'll actually walk you through some examples on the screen, and I think it'll be a really useful framework and mnemonic for you to help with your ad copy. And again, if your ad copy is better, you'll get more conversions. If you get more conversions with the right people, Facebook will be like, cool, I'll find more of those people, and the whole flywheel just works beautifully.